In the dusty attic of a Hartford estate sale in October 2023, an extraordinary discovery waited among forgotten family heirlooms. The Victorian mansion had belonged to the Whitmore family for over a century, and now their possessions were being dispersed to collectors and curiosity seekers. Hidden behind a stack of mundane family documents, a single photograph would soon challenge everything historians thought they knew about 1920s America. The sepia-toned portrait appeared unremarkable at first glance. 5 members of the Whitmore family sat posed in their formal drawing room, captured in the stiff, serious style typical of early 20th century family photography. Edward Whitmore, the patriarch, wore his finest 3-piece suit, his expression stern and businesslike. Beside him sat his wife Catherine in an elegant drop-waist dress that marked the emerging fashion of the 1920s. Their 3 children, Robert, Eleanor, and Thomas, were arranged with the careful precision that wealthy families demanded for their formal portraits. The photograph's quality was exceptional for its time. The lighting was professionally executed, creating sharp contrasts and clear details that surpassed typical family portraits of the era. Behind the family, an ornate Victorian mirror reflected the scene, its surface polished to perfection. What made this particular photograph remarkable, however, wasn't visible to the casual observer. For over a century, this image had remained locked away in Edward Whitmore's private study, discovered only recently by his great-grandson during the estate settlement. Family lore suggested that Edward had been secretive about certain aspects of his business dealings, but no one understood why he would hide a simple family portrait. The photograph bore the mark of Hoffman Studios, a prestigious Chicago photography establishment known for its innovative techniques. Leopold Hoffman had been considered one of the most skilled photographers of his generation, capable of achieving remarkable clarity and detail in an era when such precision required exceptional expertise. Yet something about this particular image suggested capabilities that shouldn't have existed in 1920. The level of detail, the unusual sharpness of the reflections, and the sophisticated lighting techniques hinted at technology decades ahead of its time. When the photograph was subjected to modern digital enhancement techniques, the impossible became undeniable. High-resolution scanning revealed details that had remained hidden for over a century, details that would revolutionize understanding of early 20th century American history. The ornate mirror behind the Whitmore family had captured more than just the backs of the posed subjects. In the reflection, clearly visible when magnified, stood 2 additional figures who weren't present in the main photograph. These weren't photographic artifacts or double exposures. They were distinct individuals standing in positions that should have made them visible in the primary image. The first figure appeared to be wearing a military uniform, his posture rigid and authoritative. Despite the sepia tones and the passage of time, his distinctive features were remarkably clear. The second man wore civilian clothing, but carried what appeared to be official documentation, his stance suggesting someone accustomed to wielding authority. Photography experts who examined the enhanced image were baffled. The level of detail captured in the mirror's reflection exceeded the technical capabilities of standard 1920s camera equipment. The depth of field, the clarity of the reflected figures, and the precision of the lighting suggested camera and lens, technology that wouldn't become available to professional photographers for several more decades. Even more puzzling was the seamless integration of these reflected figures into the original photograph. If this had been a case of double exposure or other early photographic manipulation techniques, evidence of the alteration would be visible under modern analysis. Instead, the image appeared to be a single, unmanipulated exposure that somehow captured details with impossible clarity. The implications were staggering. Either someone in 1920 had access to photographic technology far in advance of what was publicly available, or this photograph documented something that powerful interests had wanted to keep hidden. The reflected figures weren't accidentally captured. They were evidence of a secret meeting that someone had deliberately documented. The mystery deepened when researchers discovered that Leopold Hoffman, the photographer whose studio mark appeared on the image, had vanished without explanation in 1921, just 1 year after this photograph was taken. His studio had been found abandoned, with all equipment mysteriously removed. Historical records painted an intriguing picture of the Whitmore family during the tumultuous early 1920s. Edward Whitmore's official occupation was listed simply as businessman in census records, but deeper investigation revealed connections to a shadowy network of investors and government officials who called themselves the Advancement Society. This organization, previously unknown to historians, appeared to have funded experimental research into what they termed next-generation intelligence gathering. Their activities coincided perfectly with the post-World War I expansion of government, surveillance capabilities, and the emerging challenges of enforcing prohibition across America. Edward Whitmore's financial records, when they could be traced, showed payments to various research facilities and private laboratories across the Midwest. These payments were often disguised as routine business expenses, but the amounts were substantial, far exceeding what would be expected for conventional import-export operations. The Advancement Society's membership roster, discovered in fragmentary documents, included names that would have been familiar to any American reading newspapers in 1920. Prominent senators, military officials, and industrialists had apparently joined forces to fund technological research that remained classified for decades after their deaths. What made the Whitmore family photograph particularly significant was its timing. The portrait was taken in the autumn of 1920, just as the Advancement Society was reaching the peak of its activities. Government documents from the era, released only recently under Freedom of Information Act requests, revealed that federal agencies were deeply concerned about the organization's research and its potential applications. By 1921, the same year, that photographer Leopold Hoffman disappeared. The Advancement Society had suddenly disbanded. Its members scattered across the country, its research facilities were abandoned, and its funding sources dried up overnight. Official explanations cited economic difficulties and shifting political priorities, but eyewitness accounts suggested a more dramatic conclusion. Neighbors of various society facilities reported seeing federal agents conducting raids in the early hours of the morning. Equipment was removed under heavy guard, documents were confiscated, and facility managers were taken away for questioning. Within weeks, all traces of the organization's activities had been erased from public view. The Whitmore family photograph, hidden away and forgotten, had apparently survived this systematic elimination of evidence. Declassified government documents from the 1980s revealed the true scope of federal involvement in suppressing information about the Advancement Society. What had initially appeared to be a private organization of wealthy investors was actually a front for classified military research into surveillance technology that wouldn't be publicly acknowledged for decades. The research conducted under the Advancement Society's umbrella included early experiments in advanced optics, electronic surveillance, and what would later become known as photographic intelligence gathering. These programs, funded jointly by private investors and government agencies, were exploring technological possibilities that were officially considered impossible in 1920. Leopold Hoffman's role in this research was crucial. His photography studio served as a testing ground for experimental camera and lens technology that could capture details invisible to conventional equipment. The exceptional clarity of the Whitmore family photograph wasn't the result of superior artistic technique. It was evidence of prototype surveillance equipment being tested under the cover of routine portrait photography. Federal agents had been monitoring the Advancement Society's activities with growing concern. Internal memos from 1920 and 1921, discovered in archived FBI files, expressed worry about the potential for this technology to be used against government interests or to fall into the wrong hands. The decision to shut down the organization came after intelligence reports suggested that some members were planning to expose the classified nature of their research. Edward Whitmore, according to these documents, had become uncomfortable with the surveillance applications of the technology and was threatening to withdraw his support and funding. On March 15, 1921, federal agents conducted coordinated raids on all known Advancement Society facilities. Equipment was confiscated, research documents were classified, and key personnel were detained for extensive questioning. Leopold Hoffman, whose photography equipment was central to the surveillance research, disappeared the night before the raids were scheduled to begin. Edward Whitmore's death in 1923, officially attributed to natural causes, occurred just as he was preparing to testify before a congressional committee about government surveillance programs. Witnesses reported that his Hartford mansion had been searched thoroughly before his body was discovered, and that several boxes of documents had been removed by unknown individuals. The family photograph, hidden behind other documents in Edward's private study, had apparently escaped detection during these searches. For over a century, it remained the only surviving evidence of the Advancement Society's classified research program. Advanced facial recognition software and historical photograph databases finally revealed the identities of the mysterious figures, captured in the mirror's reflection. The results confirmed the most significant government cover-up of the early 20th century. The man in military uniform was General Robert Morrison, a decorated World War I veteran who had transitioned to overseeing domestic intelligence operations in the post-war period. Morrison's official duties included coordinating between military and civilian agencies on matters of national security, but his involvement with the Advancement Society had never been documented in any official capacity. General Morrison's presence at the Whitmore family portrait session took on new significance when researchers discovered his role in developing early surveillance protocols for federal agencies. His expertise in military intelligence made him a valuable advisor to the Advancement Society's research programs, particularly those involving photographic reconnaissance techniques. The second figure, carrying official documentation, was identified as Senator William Hayes, chairman of a classified Senate subcommittee on emerging technologies. Hayes had publicly advocated for limited government and reduced federal spending, but his secret involvement with the Advancement Society revealed a very different agenda. Senator Hayes had been instrumental in securing government funding for the organization's research while maintaining plausible deniability about federal involvement. His presence at the Whitmore gathering suggested that he was directly overseeing classified programs that he was simultaneously denying in public hearings. The documentation visible in Hayes's hands appeared to be official government papers, possibly contracts or authorization letters for classified research funding. The clarity of the reflected image was sufficient to make out partial text, including what appeared to be Department of War letterhead and classification stamps. These identifications transformed understanding of the photograph's significance. This wasn't simply a family portrait that had accidentally captured additional figures. It was evidence of a secret meeting between government officials and private contractors involved in classified surveillance research. Edward Whitmore had apparently used Leopold Hoffman's advanced camera equipment to create a permanent record of this meeting, documenting the participants in a way that couldn't be denied or destroyed. The family portrait provided perfect cover for what was actually an intelligence-gathering operation directed against his own government collaborators. The implications were staggering. A private citizen had successfully documented secret government activities and hidden the evidence for over a century. Analysis of Leopold Hoffman's photography equipment, discovered in a Chicago storage facility in 2019, revealed the true extent of the Advancement Society's technological achievements. The camera and lens systems used to create the Whitmore family photograph were decades ahead of their time, incorporating principles that wouldn't be widely understood until the 1960s. Hoffman's cameras utilized experimental lens configurations that could simultaneously capture both direct and reflected light with unprecedented clarity. This technology allowed the photographer to record details in mirrors and reflective surfaces that were invisible to conventional camera equipment of the era. The optical systems also incorporated early electronic components that enhanced light sensitivity and image resolution. These innovations, funded by the Advancement Society's classified research budget, represented breakthroughs in photographic science that wouldn't be achieved commercially for several more decades. Most significantly, Hoffman's equipment included primitive but functional systems for what would later be called enhanced surveillance photography. The cameras could capture details at distances and in lighting conditions that made covert documentation possible without the knowledge of the subjects being photographed. Government documents revealed that this technology was intended for intelligence applications, allowing agents to photograph documents, individuals, and meetings without detection. The exceptional clarity of reflected images meant that surveillance operations could be conducted from positions where direct photography would be impossible. The Whitmore family photograph represented a field test of this surveillance technology under real-world conditions. The formal portrait session provided perfect cover for testing the equipment's ability to capture hidden details and document individuals who believed they were outside the camera's range. Edward Whitmore's decision to preserve this photograph suggested that he understood its significance as evidence of the technology's capabilities. By hiding the image in his private study, he created an insurance policy that would protect him if his government collaborators decided to eliminate witnesses to their classified programs. The discovery of Hoffman's equipment also explained his sudden disappearance in 1921. As the only person who fully understood the surveillance technology, he represented both an invaluable asset and a dangerous liability to the Advancement Society's government sponsors. FBI files from the 1920s, declassified in the late 1990s, revealed the systematic effort to eliminate all evidence of the Advancement Society's surveillance research. The operation involved multiple federal agencies working in coordination to suppress information that could embarrass the government or compromise national security. The cover-up began immediately after the March 1921 raids on Advancement Society facilities. All personnel involved in the research were required to sign comprehensive secrecy agreements that prohibited them from discussing their work for the remainder of their lives. Those who refused to cooperate faced criminal prosecution under the Espionage Act. Leopold Hoffman's disappearance was not voluntary. Government documents indicated that he had been relocated under a new identity after agreeing to continue his surveillance photography research for exclusive government use. His public disappearance was staged to prevent other researchers from attempting to contact him or continue his work independently. Edward Whitmore's resistance to the cover-up made him a significant threat to the operation. His wealth and social connections meant that he couldn't simply be relocated or intimidated like other program participants. Government surveillance of the Whitmore family intensified throughout 1921 and 1922, with agents monitoring their communications and documenting their activities. When Whitmore began preparing testimony for congressional investigators in early 1923, federal officials decided that more drastic action was necessary. His death was carefully orchestrated to appear natural, but witness accounts suggested that his Hartford mansion had been thoroughly searched before authorities arrived to investigate the death. The search focused on Whitmore's private study, where agents believed he had hidden evidence of the Advancement Society's activities. Despite their thorough investigation, they failed to discover the family photograph concealed behind other documents in his desk. This oversight would prove to be the cover-up's fatal flaw. Other Advancement Society members received clear messages about the consequences of attempting to expose the program. Several died under suspicious circumstances over the following years, while others abandoned their previous research interests entirely and relocated to different parts of the country. By 1925, the cover-up appeared complete. All evidence of the U surveillance research had been classified or destroyed. All participants had been silenced, and official records contained no mention of the Advancement Society's existence. The program's technological achievements were quietly integrated into ongoing government intelligence operations without acknowledgement of their origins. In 2021, construction workers renovating the Hartford mansion discovered a hidden compartment in Edward Whitmore's study that had escaped detection during the 1923 search. Inside was a leather-bound journal containing Whitmore's detailed account of the Advancement Society's activities and his growing concerns about government surveillance overreach. The journal entries, written between 1919 and 1921, provided the first insider perspective on the classified research program. Whitmore documented the Society's meetings, described the experimental technology being developed, and recorded his conversations with government officials who were funding the work. Early entries showed Whitmore's enthusiasm for the technological possibilities. Hoffman's new lens configuration produces remarkable clarity in reflected images. The applications for intelligence gathering are extraordinary. However, his tone shifted dramatically as he realized the full implications of the research. By 1920, Whitmore was expressing serious doubts. The government officials are pushing for applications that go far beyond what we originally intended. They speak of monitoring private citizens, documenting personal activities, and creating comprehensive surveillance networks. This was not what we agreed to support. The journal revealed that the family photograph was taken deliberately as insurance against government retaliation. Whitmore wrote, "I have instructed Hoffman to document today's meeting using the new equipment. If government officials believe they can silence us, they will discover that we have evidence of their involvement that cannot be denied or destroyed." Later entries showed Whitmore's preparation for his planned congressional testimony. "I have hidden the most sensitive materials where they cannot be found." The photograph clearly shows Morrison and Hayes participating in activities they have publicly denied. "If anything happens to me, the truth will eventually come to light." The final entry, dated March 10, 1923, was chilling in its prescience. "Federal agents have been watching our home. Catherine is frightened, and the children have noticed strange men in the neighborhood. I fear that my decision to testify has put my family in danger. I pray that the evidence I have preserved will someday vindicate my actions and expose the truth about this surveillance program." The journal's discovery provided crucial context for understanding the photograph's significance and confirmed that Edward Whitmore had deliberately created evidence to protect himself against government retaliation. The Whitmore photograph's emergence in 2023 coincided with renewed public interest in historical government surveillance programs. Congressional hearings on intelligence agency overreach had created a political climate where revelations about past cover-ups could generate significant attention and accountability. When the photograph and journal were presented to congressional investigators, the response was immediate and dramatic. The clear evidence of early surveillance technology development and government efforts to suppress information about civil liberties violations sparked demands for a comprehensive investigation into historical intelligence programs. Intelligence agencies initially attempted to downplay the photograph's significance, arguing that surveillance technology from over a century ago had no relevance to modern privacy concerns. However, the technological sophistication revealed in Hoffman's equipment demonstrated that government surveillance capabilities had been systematically concealed from public oversight for decades. The photograph also raised questions about other classified programs that might have been hidden from congressional oversight. If the Advancement Society's surveillance research had been successfully concealed for over a century, what other programs might still be operating without proper accountability? Legal experts noted that the government's efforts to suppress information about the program might constitute ongoing violations of constitutional rights. Even though the original participants were long dead, the systematic deception about surveillance capabilities had implications for current debates about intelligence agency transparency and oversight. Civil liberties organizations seized on the photograph as evidence that government surveillance overreach had deeper historical roots than previously understood. They argued that the Whitmore case demonstrated the need for stronger protections against classified programs that operate without proper congressional oversight. The revelation also sparked interest from international observers who noted similarities between the Advancement Society's surveillance research and early intelligence programs in other countries. The technological innovations documented in the photograph suggested that American intelligence capabilities in the 1920s had been more advanced than publicly acknowledged. Most significantly, the photograph provided concrete evidence that government officials had been willing to use lethal force to protect classified surveillance programs. Edward Whitmore's murder had been successfully concealed for over a century, raising questions about other potential victims of intelligence agency cover-ups. The Whitmore family photograph now resides in the National Archives, displayed as a testament to the courage of individuals who risked their lives to document government surveillance overreach. The exhibition draws thousands of visitors annually, many of whom are learning for the first time about the early history of American intelligence programs. Congressional investigations triggered by the photograph's discovery have led to the declassification of thousands of documents related to historical surveillance programs. These revelations have provided historians with new insights into the development of intelligence capabilities and the government's efforts to conceal controversial programs from public oversight. The technological innovations documented in Leopold Hoffman's equipment have been recognized as pioneering achievements in surveillance photography. Modern intelligence agencies have acknowledged that techniques developed by the Advancement Society influenced surveillance methods used throughout the 20th century. Educational institutions across the country have incorporated the Whitmore case into curricula about civil liberties, government accountability, and the historical development of surveillance technology. The photograph serves as a powerful reminder that the tension between security and privacy has deeper roots than many people realized. Legal reforms inspired by the case have strengthened congressional oversight of classified programs and created new protections for whistleblowers who expose government wrongdoing. Edward Whitmore has been posthumously recognized as an early defender of civil liberties who paid the ultimate price for his principles. The photograph has also sparked renewed interest in other potential evidence of historical cover-ups. Historians and investigative journalists are examining archives and private collections for additional documents that might reveal suppressed information about government surveillance programs. Leopold Hoffman's fate remains a mystery, but government documents suggest that he continued his surveillance photography research under a new identity until his death in the 1950s. His technological innovations laid the foundation for intelligence capabilities that continue to influence modern surveillance methods. Most importantly, the Whitmore photograph has demonstrated that truth has a way of surviving even the most comprehensive cover-up attempts. Edward Whitmore's decision to preserve evidence of government surveillance overreach ultimately achieved his goal of exposing the program and holding officials accountable, even though it took over a century for his insurance policy to pay its dividend. The ordinary 1920 family portrait had revealed an extraordinary story of courage, conspiracy, and the eternal struggle between government secrecy and democratic accountability, proving that some secrets are too important to remain hidden forever.